Another day, another OnePlus. It's the fantastic OnePlus 13R, a phone that I've used for over a month now. I did the review for Android Police, so I've had a lot of hands-on time with this device. Gave it a 9 out of 10 for plenty of reasons that we're going to talk about in this video. Just fantastic. You can see the shimmery silver here, the astral trail, the matte frosted back. There's a lot of things that are going in this phone's favor, especially for $600. Link in the description does help the channel. It feels like OnePlus is kind of getting the old band back together. It's kind of building its team. The 12R was a decisively mid-range device at a mid-range price. Yes, it punched above its weight on a bunch of different things. Same thing with the 13R, but there was some separation there. It feels like this is almost, if we were going back to the old OnePlus lineup, the 9 Pro, the 8 Pro, this would have been the 8 or the 9. So if the 13 were the 13 Pro, then this could be just the regular 13. It feels like we're getting back to that. It's a higher price, yes, but it's kind of, this might be semantics, this might be acrobatics price-wise, but it's a higher price than last year's. The base last year was $500, but it's the same price as the 12 gigabyte variant from last year. So if you wanted the 12 gigabyte 12R, you had to pay $600. Same deal, you're getting 12 gigabytes of RAM on the 13R. So yes, you can no longer get a base 13R for $500, but you're getting a RAM bump there on the spec. So at least it's not a spec for spec price increase, but yes, it is going to cost you a few more dollars to get into a 13R. But boy, is it worth it. When you think, when we talk about these hyper mid-range devices, when we talk about devices that can rival flagship performance, the 13R has just put itself to the front of the line. Talk about display, phenomenal. It's a 1.5K, I guess, is that even a thing? It's a 1264 display, so it is a bump up from a 1080p display. On initial setup, you do have to go in and turn it up. It is 1080p by default, so just be aware of that. Go in there and take advantage of it. 6.7-inch, beautiful OLED. Love the way it's tuned out of the box, but again, as we talked about yesterday, with Oxygen OS 15, I could go in and I get really granular controls over the modes that I want and the color temperature on here. I have it on Vivid. I think it was set to natural by default, but then you got your pro modes, cinematic, brilliant down here, and you can actually really get into the color temperatures. Phenomenal display. Love the way it could be tuned. Just a beautiful and brilliant panel. Build quality, IP65, yes, that's going to come up short of the IP69 of its bigger brother. It's also going to come up short of the IP68 rating of something like the S24 FE. We are going to have a direct comparison. This has a lot of advantages, though, despite that, so don't worry too much about that. Brush to finish, which I wish the bigger 13 had. That would have been nice, but so I like the feel. We talked about the astral trail, just beautiful shimmering. You get these concentric circles that are coming out that add a little bit of texture. Or maybe that's just the frosting. I don't know. It feels like there's some texture on there, but just an overall brilliant design. If you're going to get one, I certainly recommend the Astral Trail variant. Gorilla Glass 7i, I should say. Yes, is that a step down from what we were getting last year? I think it was Victus 2 last year on the 12R. The 7i supposedly is thinner, but then you get into the different Gorilla Glass categories. It dropped from a meter onto an asphalt-like material as opposed to drop from a meter on concrete, which is more jagged. Gorilla Glass stuff, my eyes glaze over when we talk about it, because to me, when my phone is launched out of my hand, it's going to be at 100 miles an hour onto marble, and it's going to absolutely shatter. So I don't really get into it. If it saves some money, then I don't really care about that on this. You can always get a screen protector or a case if you're really worried about it. Price, $600 is unbeatable. Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, 12 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigs of storage, UFS 4.0 storage, fast storage. This is a blazing phone. Gaming is phenomenal. Genshin flies on this. And you start at high settings. Not something you're used to in the mid-range. You start at high settings on this. Just a phenomenal, phenomenal device. You could go ahead, Oxygen OS 15 running well, no problems with the software. I changed those settings, remember, with a shelf yesterday where you can swipe down anywhere, you could change that. I don't have the split notifications or the quick toggles. You could change that as well. So while I don't love that OnePlus has pulled over some of the elements I don't necessarily like from iOS, and it seems like everybody's going for these split notifications, at least we can get it back to a look and feel that we had with Oxygen OS 14. So the animations are smooth. This phone is fast. Everything you'd expect from a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, a flagship chip from like 2 months ago. That was what we were still considered a flagship. before the 8 Elite came out. So think about everything that you're getting there. Think about what you paid for this, a chipset like this 6 months ago. This is what all the current generation Samsung phones are running for another week or so. So, when you think about that, and the fact that you're getting $600 and the value and the extra RAM and the software support, 4 years of OS upgrades, 6 years of security updates. So while it's not quite the same as what you're getting from the 8A and the S24 FE, you're getting that 7 and 7 over there. I understand that 4 is at least a respectable number. And then when you talk about those 6 years of security updates, that's also a respectable number. So now we're close enough that the power and the performance and the price and the charging and the battery life, which we'll talk about in a moment, really start to come into play and fall into this phone's favor. Let's talk about battery life. 6,000 milliamp hour battery, 55 watt charging included, wired charging, adapter in the box, okay? You can get one of the more powerful adapters, an 80 watt or 100 watt adapter, and charge this thing a little bit faster. To me, the battery, I don't think it's the new tech. So they say that OnePlus says it's added some of the battery management stuff that's in the 13 into here, but that's not the new silicon carbon battery. That's not the new battery tech. It's not a dual cell. It's a single cell in the back here, but that I wouldn't really worry about that because 6,000 milliamp hour battery, and it is a phenomenal battery. You can't kill this one. You can't kill a 13. You can't kill this. 2-day battery life. And a lot of times when you see marketing materials like, 2-day battery life, was that barely using it? You could use this pretty heavily as long as you're not hardcore gaming. If you're running Genshin for 8 hours, you're going to have to top off. As long as you're doing normal task stuff, Facebook, Twitter, or X, Instagram, Apple Music, everything that you see on here, Reddit, as long as you're doing a full day of that, you can make it 2 and possibly even 3 days. There is minimal battery drain. The motives in this thing are fantastic. I just love what OnePlus has done and the decisions that were made to kind of, how do we get to an X dollar amount? What's important? What do we keep? Can we pull wireless charge out? I know that angers a lot of people. We don't quite have the IP rating. We're not using the same Gorilla Glass as some of the other competitors do at this price range, or even that we did last year. I understand all of that, but if this phone could get this performance from a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, 12 gigs of RAM, fast storage, at $600, that's the classic OnePlus value. That's what we used to talk about. This is a screamer, flagship-like performance, basically flagship performance for $600. And if you were to tell me years ago why we fell in love with OnePlus, that's how. Camera's also not that bad. Nighttime imagery, pleasantly surprised. Gotta say, throwing up a couple shots here, it's sharp. Not bad. 50 megapixels on the main, 50 megapixels on the 2X telephoto, and then there's the 8 megapixel third lens in there that's not really going to get a lot of use. But I was really impressed. It's not the Hasselblad stuff, so you're not getting a lot of that. You go into the camera app, you're going to see here, you're not getting the Hasselblad stuff. The camera app looks a little different, but still functions nicely. I do like the layout. Overall, this is a phenomenal, phenomenal phone. And if you're in the market for a mid-range device, and you've been thinking, wow, maybe I'll go with the Samsung, maybe this, maybe I'll go with the Pixel 9, take some pause and really think about this. As long as you're not, like we said yesterday, as long as you're not married to any one particular ecosystem, this is the phone that you're going to want to pick up. If you're an enthusiast, you're already picking this up, especially in the United States. Yeah, I know the Oppos and the Vivos, and I know all those phones, a million phones that they got that come in at $400, $500, $600. We're talking about here in the United States. This is what a phone that looks like it's actually taking customers seriously. You have now you got kind of that two-pronged attack on Samsung, right? You got the Pixel 8A and you got the Pixel 9 that are for people who want the AI enhancements and the different camera enhancements and the Material U and the Google software. So that's one area. Then you got this guy over here, the 13R, for people who want that raw performance in the mid-range. So there's a lot of value to be had up and down the lineup this year with OnePlus, and I think the 13R, if your budget is $600 and the 13R is not at the top of your list, or at least doesn't get some consideration, then I really don't know what you're doing. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.